Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Evelyn Lee, in for Kevin. Let's start off with our top stories today. President Biden meeting with Senate Judiciary leaders today to discuss a Supreme Court nominee. What does a key lawmaker have to say about Biden's plan? A new ballot drive seeks to change election laws in Michigan to expand access to voting. Meanwhile, another initiative seeks to make voting more secure. A fire breaks out at a fertilizer plant storing over 300 tons of potentially explosive ammonium nitrate in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Residents within 1 mile of the plant are urged to evacuate. And the threat from the Chinese Communist Party is getting more damaging than ever. That's a warning from the head of the FBI just days ahead of the Beijing Winter Olympics. About 6,500 people have been told to evacuate their homes in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's because of a fire at a fertilizer plant that stores more than 300 tons of potentially explosive ammonium nitrate. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
The blaze at the Weaver fertilizer plant on North Cherry Street started Monday evening. Residents within 1 mile of the plant were urged to evacuate and stay away from their homes for up to 48 hours.
When first units arrived, they found heavy fire and involvement in the building, and subsequently the entire building has become consumed by fire and has collapsed in.
Winston-Salem Fire Chief Trey Mayo said the firefighting operation had been abandoned due to the large amount of ammonium nitrate on site.
The risk that is posed by this facility is it stores ammonium nitrate, and there could be as much as there's somewhere between 300 and 600 tons of ammonium nitrate in this facility.
A large quantity of ammonium nitrate exposed to intense heat can trigger an explosion. In 2020, a massive blast at a warehouse used to store ammonium nitrate in Beirut, Lebanon, killed at least 100 people and injured nearly 4,000. An explosion at a Texas fertilizer plant killed 15 and injured about 200 in 2013.
There could be almost 3 times that much ammonium nitrate in this facility on North Cherry Street. So we need folks within a 1 mile radius of this facility at 4440 North Cherry Street to evacuate.
No injuries have been reported so far, and local media said the cause of the fire is not yet known. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Senate Democrats say as soon as President Biden announces his pick for the Supreme Court, they'll expedite the process as much as possible. Although Democrat Joe Manchin has clashed with Biden on some things, he seems to support the president now. NTD's Jessica Beatty with more on that.
Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said Monday he's anxious to see who President Biden picks for Supreme Court justice, and he's in favor of filling the court quickly so there's no vacancy.
I'm anxious. I just think we need to make sure that we have a full court of 9. We're looking for a good, qualified, competent rule of law person, and I think there's quite a few that have been mentioned.
Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement last week. It gives Biden a chance to make his first nomination to the High Court and fulfill a campaign promise to nominate the first black woman. Manchin supports the move.
Oh, I think it basically represents, you must represent basically who we are as a nation. I think it's far beyond time, It's time to do it. Okay?
3 women are widely considered to be on the short list: D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, California State Supreme Court Justice Leandra Kruger, and Michelle Childs, a federal judge on the District Court in South Carolina. President Biden meeting with Senate Judiciary leaders Tuesday to discuss nominees.
He will do his duty to select a justice not only with the Senate's consent, but with its advice. As somebody who served on the Senate Judiciary Committee and was chair, both as chair and ranking member, he is steeped in this process and looks forward to advice from members of both parties on the Hill.
Senate Judiciary Chairman Dick Durbin says he's already reaching out to Republicans, and several are open to helping confirm the next justice. But some, including Republican Senator Roger Wicker, have raised concerns about picking a nominee based on race. Durbin responded, saying Biden wouldn't be the first president to set certain standards for a Supreme Court nominee, and that both Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump announced they would appoint women to the Supreme Court. President Biden says he'll make his pick by the end of February. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
And there is a new ballot initiative in Michigan. A coalition of groups want to make major changes to Michigan's election laws. Let's take a look at some of the details of their proposal and another initiative that's running at the same time.
The stickers on the table.
A Michigan ballot campaign seeks to amend the Constitution to allow 9 days of early voting, require state funding for absentee ballot postage and secure drop boxes, and allow votes from overseas and military to be counted 6 days past Election Day. It would also allow voters to request absentee ballots for all future elections and limit lawmakers' ability to enact various voter ID requirements. Among other changes, a group called Promote the Vote introduced the constitutional amendment earlier this week. Among its supporters are groups like American Civil Liberties Union of Michigan and Voters Not Politicians.
Voters should decide the outcome of elections, not politicians. And while it sounds too obvious to state, this proposal establishes that election outcomes are decided by voters, by their votes cast.
A Republican-led petition is also in circulation called Secure MI Vote. It seeks to introduce new voter ID rules, restrictions on election funding, and a ban on election officials mailing absentee ballot applications unless voters specifically request them. Democrats say the earlier announced GOP-backed measure would restrict voting. The Republican Party says it makes voting more secure. Promote the Vote's initiative needs some 425,000 signatures. Secure MI's initiative needs about 340,000 to introduce it to the legislature.
An Arizona Senate subcommittee is advancing 6 more pieces of legislation, all aimed at election security in the state. The bills were pushed forward by the Senate Committee on Government along party lines. The committee's Republican majority edged out Democrats to get the bills through. One of the bills would make knowingly voting in more than one place a Class 5 felony fraud charge. The bills would also allow a voter to sue for the loss of the right to vote if their early voting ballot was misplaced and therefore not counted. Other bills would make proof of citizenship a requirement to vote. A Democratic senator voted against the bill, though, saying there is no evidence of undocumented people voting in Arizona or around the country. Much of the proposed Senate legislation was filed in direct response to allegations of voter fraud in Arizona during the 2020 presidential election. A forensic audit found numerous ballot discrepancies and potential issues. And former President Trump took in more than $100 million in fundraising up through 2021. Now he could use the funds to help Republicans win majorities in Congress later this year. Trump has endorsed dozens of Republican candidates, including several who are mounting challenges against Republicans who voted alongside Democrats to impeach Trump. Trump's Save America fundraising committee ended 2021 after raising $105 million. Trump remains popular among Republicans and has hinted he could run for president again in 2024. Campaign finance rules would forbid him from funding his own candidacy with money raised by Save America. Trump's former campaign committee, now dubbed the Make America Great Again PAC, had $6.7 million in cash at the end of the year. Much of its outlays in the second half of the year went to legal expenses. Democrats hold slim majorities in Congress and are bracing for a difficult election season with President Biden's slumping popularity. FBI Chief Christopher Wray renewed his warning about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. He's calling it more damaging than ever. That's with the Beijing Olympics just around the corner.
FBI Director Christopher Wray warns Beijing's aggression toward democratic countries is reaching a new level, calling it more brazen and damaging than ever before.
I do want to be clear that the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party pose the threat we're focused on countering. Not the Chinese people, and certainly not Chinese Americans, who are themselves frequently victims of the Chinese government's lawless aggression.
He gave a speech at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Wray accuses Beijing of stealing information and harming a wide range of U.S. industries. As for how that's known, he cited the Bureau's counterintelligence activities.
So much so that, as you heard, we're constantly opening new cases to counter their intelligence operations, about every 12 hours or so.
Wray notes that Chinese state-backed hackers have stolen staggering amounts of personal and corporate data, more than all other countries combined, though Beijing has repeatedly rejected those accusations.
When we tally up what we see in our investigations, over 2,000 of which are focused on the Chinese government trying to steal our information and technology, there is just no country that presents a broader threat to our ideas, our innovation, and our economic security than China.
A recent investigation by the U.S. International Trade Commission offers a glimpse into the high-level censorship seen in China. The report says the Chinese regime uses a mix of technical and non-technical tools to control the flow of information, all in the service of its political agenda. Measures include website blocking, keyword filtering, and throttling. U.S. lawmakers have called for fighting back using trade tools.
Lockheed Martin and Airbus are joining forces for a new project, building mid-air refueling tankers for the U.S. Air Force. But for the effort to get the green light, their aircraft design would need to be selected over the model proposed by rival Boeing. The Air Force has sought to replace hundreds of aging tankers from the 1950s that are still in service. Lockheed's project head says a win for the two aerospace partners could create 1,300 new jobs split between plants in Alabama and Georgia. Airbus would have to expand its facilities in Alabama to accommodate wide-body aircraft production. While Lockheed already has existing hangars previously used for large cargo planes. Right now, Boeing has an Air Force contract to build up to 179 refueling tankers. But the company has struggled with design and quality control setbacks. The Lockheed and Airbus tankers would represent a new version of an Airbus tanker built in France and Spain and flown by 14 different militaries worldwide. It's official. Tom Brady is hanging up his helmet. Today, the NFL quarterback announced on Instagram that he is ending his 22-year football career at the age of 44. The three-time MVP has set records for the most touchdowns and playoff wins over his career, many of which may never be broken. Last season, Brady led the Bucs to their first Super Bowl victory since the early 2000s. Before that, he spent 2 decades with the New England Patriots, leading the team to 6 Super Bowl titles. In his post, Brady thanked his Tampa Bay teammates, coaches, and fans, his family, and other supporters. Noticeably absent from the list, Patriots staff, even though Brady spent most of his career there. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he gets along with President Biden and is looking forward to his visit this week.
I'm the Biden of Brooklyn, and I love the fact that the president is coming here. We're just like these blue-collar guys. You know, he is comfortable around everyday people.
Adams did not share much detail on what the agenda is for Biden's visit, besides checking on the city's plans to fight gun violence. Adams said there are a few more surprises, but he would not elaborate. A team from the National Transportation Safety Board is examining the Pittsburgh bridge collapse. On Monday, crews siphoned gasoline and brought in cranes to lift 5 vehicles and a bus of the crumpled remains of the bridge. By late afternoon, the bus had been pulled out of the ravine, attached to a crane by 3 straps. The Pennsylvania Department of Transportation said the bridge showed deterioration during a September inspection, but it wasn't bad enough to close the bridge. Pennsylvania DOT spokesperson Alexis Campbell says the agency will not release the full inspection report. She cites state and federal law and the ongoing investigation into the failure of the Forbes Avenue Bridge. There were no fatalities in the collapse, but a few people were admitted into the hospital. And as of Monday, 1 adult was still hospitalized. Regulators are urging Pfizer to apply for emergency authorization, this time for a 2-dose COVID-19 vaccine regimen for children ages 6 months to 5 years. The company will then push for a 3-dose course for the age group. The vaccine would be administered to younger kids at 1/10 the strength of the adult shot. Early Pfizer data shows the vaccine is safe and produces an immune response. But last year, Pfizer announced the 2-dose shot proved less effective at preventing COVID-19 in kids aged 2 to 5. Regulators encouraged the company to add a 3rd dose to the study. The 2-step authorization process could mean young children may be vaccinated more than a month earlier than previous estimates. The Food and Drug Administration is pushing the company to submit its application based on the 2-dose data for potential approval in February. It also advises the company to return for additional authorization once data is in from the third dose study. And California's governor and other officials were spotted maskless at the NFL official championships. This trending topic was filled with criticism against him, along with debate on mask mandates. NTD's Aline Ang has more on the story.
People are calling out Governor Gavin Newsom for not wearing his mask again, this time at the official championships at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles on Sunday. Magic Johnson was also present, maskless with the governor. The former basketball player was also with San Francisco Mayor London Breed and Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. At a press conference, Newsom said,
"I was very judicious yesterday, very judicious, and you'll see the photo that I did take where Magic was kind enough, generous enough to ask me for a photograph, and in my left hand's the mask, and I took a photo."
He said he had his mask on the rest of the time except for a drink of water. In an Instagram post, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco said to end the mandates, calling them hypocritical elites. He said this is also why he won't enforce mandates on residents of Riverside County. Last week, the Los Angeles County Public Health Director said people going to the Super Bowl on February 13th must wear KN95 masks while at the SoFi Stadium, unless they are eating or drinking. Last September, Mayor London Breed was spotted clubbing maskless in San Francisco. In 2020, Newsom and Breed were seen dining indoors maskless at the French Laundry when restrictions and mandates were most strict. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Rock star Neil Young has pulled his music from Spotify. Several artists are now following his lead, trying to pressure Spotify into removing Joe Rogan from the platform. The company is making some changes, but it seems Rogan isn't going anywhere. NTD's Miguel Moreno has the update.
Some musicians are pulling their tracks from Spotify in protest of the Joe Rogan Experience, the most popular podcast on the media streaming platform. Protesters such as Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and Nils Lofgren accuse Spotify of spreading deadly COVID-19 misinformation by allowing Rogan on the platform. The Swedish company's chief executive Daniel Ek now says that changes will be made, which might affect Rogan's podcast. In a public statement on Sunday, X said his company will add a content advisory to any podcast episode that includes a discussion about COVID-19. That advisory would direct listeners to Spotify's COVID-19 hub, which includes news from CNN, the BBC, and other mainstream networks. The new policy is set to roll out in the coming days.
Sure, have that on there. I'm very happy with that.
On Instagram, Rogan said he supports Spotify's decision. He also said that the misinformation controversy stems from his interviews with doctors Robert Malone and Peter McCullough.
If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now that's on the cover of Newsweek. All of those theories that at one point in time were banned were openly discussed by those two men that I had on my podcast that have been accused of dangerous misinformation. I do not know if they're right. I don't know because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them.
Rogan says he isn't mad at Young and that he doesn't want musicians to leave the platform. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And coming up, Manhattan's Chinatown prepares for the Lunar New Year, and residents and businesses continue to cope with the effects of the pandemic and crime. That and more in just a moment.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but also millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all your support. At MyPillow, we have hundreds of products now, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We are offering the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regularly $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive these exclusive offers. Thank you and God bless.
Chicago blues drummer and vocalist Sam Lay, who performed with the likes of Bob Dylan, Muddy Waters, and Howlin' Wolf, has died at the age of 86.
Lay died of natural causes in a nursing facility near his Chicago home on Saturday, according to independent blues label Alligator Records on Monday. Corky Spiegel, Lay's bandmate and longtime friend, told Reuters what made the drummer so special.
We played with all the great blues drummers. They're great. But Sam did something that other players that played with him can attest to. He just made people will never get to experience that.
Chicago blues developed in the Illinois city into an urban style from earlier idioms such as Delta blues. Alligator Records said Lay was known for his, quote, trademark, hard-to-copy double shuffle drumming, based on double-time hand-clapping in his childhood church. Lay backed up Dylan on drums at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, when the singer-songwriter played an electric guitar and shifted to a rock sound, a pivotal event in folk rock. After Lay was honored for his music in 2002, Alligator Records said Dylan sent him a telegram in which he wrote Lay was second to none.
And Bob Dylan's like totally disinterested in anything. He's just not interested in things. He's just sitting there. You bring up Sam Lay's name, Bob will jump out of his chair and get excited. That's Bob loved Sam in that way.
Lay was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2015 as part of the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. He is survived by his daughter Debbie, 4 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren.
And Manhattan's Chinatown is full of color for the Lunar New Year. But the annual celebration marks 2 years since the downtown neighborhood started feeling the effects of the pandemic. NTD's Andrew Thomas with more.
This is the year of the tiger, of course.
Carlin Chan has lived in Chinatown for over 60 years. He founded the Chinatown Neighborhood Block Watch in February 2020 in response to an uptick in crimes against Asian Americans.
I think the pandemic has exposed a side of American society that many Asians or many Chinese didn't realize, that we're not as accepted as we thought we were. Chinese have been here for well over 150 years. There has always been racism against Chinese, but this pandemic has exposed that.
The New York Police Department reported in December 2021 that anti-Asian incidents had increased by 361% from the previous year. The nonprofit organization Stop AAPI Hate has documented 10,370 hate incidents across the United States against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders from March 2020 through September 2021. It ranked New York State second after California for the largest number of hate incident reports during that period.
People, instead of their implicit bias, they really went overt. They really went out and did something. So, this is not acceptable, and I think it takes all New Yorkers of all ethnicities to push this back into the closet or into the little corner where it came out of.
There are around 10,000 small businesses in Chinatown, according to the New York City Department of Small Business Services. Elizabeth Yi is the owner of Tony's Fresh Rice Noodles. She opened her restaurant in October 2019.
Because this pandemic and all this hate crime and, what it did to the business and the people locally, I think everybody came together and they're actually helping each other and they want to look out for each other now. I feel the community is more tight-knitted.
For many of the businesses in Chinatown, the pandemic and hate crimes remain the biggest challenges, but many are hoping that the Year of the Tiger will usher in a new beginning. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Young ski jumpers in a suburb of Chicago are training alongside Olympic-level athletes and coaches. While Chicago is not known for its hills, a glacier has helped create a unique environment to allow world-class level ski jump training. NTD's Jason Blair has more.
My name is Julia and I'm 4, and what I want to do here as I want to ski jump.
It's not far-fetched to suggest one or more of these young jumpers may land in the Olympics someday. The hill that the Norge Ski Club uses has been a home for the sport since 1905. 3 men will represent the club for a second straight Winter Olympics. Like other kids, they started off on smaller hills and worked their way up to a 70-meter hill that gives Olympic hopefuls a chance to live their dreams.
Do the 10-meter, and the 10 is like fast. Yeah.
Guy Larson is the chairman of the Norge Ski Training Center and father of 2-time ski jump Olympian Casey Larson. He says it's a very exciting thing for the young kids to look up and know that we have athletes from this club who are competing all over the world.
You know, you don't have to be from a mountain town to become a great ski jumper.
Former Norge Ski Club jumpers Kevin Bickner and Casey Larson will become 2-time Olympians at the Beijing Games, and Patrick Gassianica earned a spot for the first time this year.
I think the funnest part's probably to fly.
There are 31 jumping clubs in 12 states spanning from Alaska to New Hampshire. Though it is a niche sport for Americans, the Norge Ski Club produces world-class competitors. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Just 4 days before the Beijing Winter Olympics begins, NBA star Enes Kanter Freedom joined Congressman Michael McCaul in calling out the Chinese Communist Party. Freedom denounced the CCP for what he called their horrific human rights abuses. He also urged all athletes to stand up for their moral values.
The CCP is successfully committing some of the most horrific crimes against humanity of our time. They are an enemy of freedom and democracy.
Congressman Michael McCaul said the Olympics are supposed to be the most prestigious sporting events in the world. But he continued, the International Olympic Committee has sustained its reputation by turning a blind eye to the CCP's atrocities.
The IOC allowing what I'm calling the genocide games to go forward is a stain on the Olympics. And I'm deeply disturbed that these games will take place in the shadow of concentration camps.
NBA star Enes Kanter Freedom agreed with McCaul for calling the Beijing Winter Olympics the Genocide Games and offered a designation of his own.
He said the Genocide Games, and I call it the Medal of Shame, all the gold medals in the world that you can win is not more important than your morals, your principles and your values. I feel like all the athletes need to stand up for something.
Freedom says the athletes need to educate themselves and know where they're going.
Listen, look what they did to their own tennis player, Peng Shui, right? Are we really going to trust with CCP with our own players? If your daughter, if your sister, if your wife was on those concentration camps in Xinjiang, would you still go to those games?
Freedom has been outspoken in his criticism of human rights abuses in China. He responded to a request to visit China from former NBA star Yao Ming on social media. Freedom said he'd accept the invitation, but only if he gets to see the real China rather than propaganda. Congressman McCaul and other Republican lawmakers sent a letter to Secretary of State Antony Blinken last week. They urged the State Department to inform American athletes, before they compete, about the full scope of the CCP's atrocities. The congressman also asked Blinken to explain what actions the State Department would take to protect American athletes who choose to exercise their freedom of speech during the Olympics.
The Foreign Correspondents Club of China is revealing the difficulties journalists face in the country. It recently released a report called 2021 Locked Down or Kicked Out, covering China. The report describes the obstacles the Chinese Communist regime creates for foreign journalists seeking to cover the news freely. 99% of foreign journalists says conditions for reporting in the country do not meet international standards. The survey documented Chinese authorities' methods for intimidating foreign journalists. In some cases, the law is weaponized against journalists. In other cases, visas are denied or pandemic measures are used to restrict reporting. Authorities have also allegedly used online trolling campaigns to harass journalists. The survey also says Hong Kong is no longer a viable option for journalists. In the past, they could operate there without fear of retaliation, but conditions have changed drastically since Beijing clamped down on the city with the passing of the 2020 national security law. And Tuesday marks the start of the Lunar New Year. Across Asia, it's a time for family reunions and some of the year's most celebrated festivals. But severe pandemic prevention measures are blocking some Chinese families from getting together for the third year in a row.
The Omicron variant has reached dozens of Chinese cities, and authorities are holding firm to Beijing's so-called zero-tolerance policy. It aims to completely climate COVID-19 in the country, a plan virtually all other nations have abandoned. Despite the pandemic, China's biggest holiday of the year is drawing near, the Lunar New Year. But related comments from a mayor in Henan province recently triggered public outrage as many gear up for a week-long vacation and travel plans.
Anyone who comes back from an area deemed medium to high risk of infection, regardless of vaccination status or whether you have a negative test from within 48 hours, as long as you come back, you'll first be quarantined and then detained.
The mayor described the prospect of going back home to visit family as malicious, and the comment isn't an isolated case. Some have started sharing related experiences through Chinese social media site Weibo. One of them is high school student from Henan province who attends a boarding school in another city. She says she had to get tested for the virus a whopping 18 times before she was granted permission to leave school and travel home. All of those 18 tests came back negative. On her way home, she was stopped by workers at a pandemic prevention booth. She and her mother, who had come to pick her up, were told they couldn't go home. That evening, they were forced to endure heavy snow and winter conditions for 9 hours. That's before a school's bus arrived the following morning to take the student back to her boarding school. These pandemic prevention booths have popped up across China. People traveling through the area are subject to searches of their person and their vehicles. Afterward, workers decide whether they're allowed to continue on or get sent back home. A number of students have reported facing similar situations. A handful were lucky enough to get home before the latest virus wave broke out. But for at least one student, even that wasn't enough. To protect her identity, we've distorted her voice.
You may have seen it on social media sites like Weibo. Many of us reported that after we got off airplanes, our IDs were taken away and we were transported away for centralized quarantine. No distinction or differentiation, just a one-size-fits-all policy.
When Hao Hao got back to Harbin City from Beijing, both regions were clear of local virus cases. Later in mid-January, Beijing reported an infection had been found in the city. And even though Hao Hao had already left, she was forced to quarantine in Harbin.
I was told not to go out starting the 16th and to quarantine at home for 7 days. My door was sealed with tape. Then I was told to prepare for isolation in a quarantine center for 14 days and that I have to pay to stay there out of my own pocket.
Canada-based Chinese lawyer Lai Jianping gave his take on the measures. He described the aggressive rules as an inevitable result of the Chinese Communist Party's rigid system.
For the top leaders, they only tell the local authorities to get something done. They don't care how it's done. For the lower officials, they have to take a one-size-fits-all approach and ignore all exceptions to ensure they can fulfill the top leaders' requirements. And on each level, they add more aggressive measures. So when it gets to the lowest level authorities, there's no room whatsoever for any exceptions.
For some Chinese citizens, this marks the third year they've been blocked from visiting family for the Lunar New Year.
And still to come, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is apologizing again for hosting parties at his residence amid lockdown. An investigation is ongoing into whether the parties broke the law and pandemic restrictions. Find out more in just a minute here on NTD News.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? But now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson apologizes and vows to fix it. His apology follows a Monday report into lockdown parties held at his Downing Street residence. The report criticizes serious failures at the heart of government.
And I'm sorry for the things we simply didn't get right, and also sorry for the way that this matter has been handled.
Yet another apology from British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday. His response to a newly released report into COVID-19 lockdown parties allegedly held at his Downing Street residence. The investigation by senior civil servant Sue Gray highlighted serious failures of leadership and judgment at the heart of government and condemned some of the behaviour by authority figures as being, quote, difficult to justify. Johnson said his government would learn from these criticisms.
Mr. Speaker, I get it. And I will fix it. And I want to say, to the people of this country, I know what the issue is. Yes, Mr. Speaker, yes. It's whether this government can be trusted to deliver. And I say, Mr. Speaker, yes, we can be trusted. Yes, we can be trusted to deliver.
The inquiry said that some events at Number 10 during the pandemic should not have taken place. But so as not to prejudice an ongoing police probe into the parties that could take months, Gray said she could not offer a meaningful report, and only an abridged version of her text has been released. The commander overseeing the police investigation, Catherine Roper, says authorities plan to contact people with questions about the parties. Johnson has so far survived calls from opponents and some in his own party to resign by saying people needed to wait for Gray's report. For now, he must hope that his Conservative colleagues do not trigger a confidence vote against him in a bid to thrust him from office. It is not clear what will happen if the police report shows evidence that Downing Street parties did in fact break the law.
And a British Airways plane had to stop an attempt to land on the runway at London's Heathrow Airport because of strong winds. Video showed wind hitting the aircraft as it tried to land before it resumed its flight. Storm Corey caused wind gusts of up to 75 miles per hour in the North Sea.
Easy. Oh my God!
Russia and the United States had a public face-off at a UN Security Council meeting on Monday. This over Russia's troop buildup at the Ukrainian border. The US and Britain also say they are prepared to punish Russian elites close to President Vladimir Putin. The two countries are suggesting asset freezes and travel bans if Russia enters Ukraine.
Tensions between Russia and the U.S. over Moscow's troop buildup near Ukraine spilled into the United Nations Security Council on Monday, with both countries accusing each other of provocation. Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said there was no proof Moscow was planning military action against Ukraine and blamed the West for hyping the threat of war.
They themselves are whipping up tensions and rhetoric and are provoking escalation.
U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield countered that it's the threat of Russian aggression that's at issue, not America's desire to deter a military conflict.
Our encouraging diplomacy is not provocative.
What exactly do you think you accomplished at this Security Council meeting?
And at the State Department, spokesman Ned Price was challenged by a reporter about whether the Security Council merely provided another forum for discussion without any action.
The point today, Matt, to come to your question, was to continue to shine a spotlight on what we are seeing.
Did the Security Council actually do anything?
If the criticism is that we are engaging too robustly in diplomacy, that we're being too transparent, that we're being too consistent in what we're saying, that is criticism that we will accept if that's a criticism you want to lodge.
Meanwhile, the U.S. and Britain said they are prepared to punish Russian elites close to President Vladimir Putin with asset freezes and travel bans if Russia enters Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov called the British warning very disturbing and said it made Britain less attractive to investors and would hurt British companies. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is due to travel to Ukraine on Tuesday, where he said he will urge Moscow to step back from the brink. Also on Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is expected to speak by phone with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
And the United States on Monday ordered the family members of its government employees in Belarus to leave the country. The U.S. also warned against travel there amid tensions between Washington and Russia over Ukraine. And up next, youngsters in Australia are trying their hands at beekeeping. And the Billion Bees Foundation promotes a threatened native species with no sting in its tail. That and more on NTD News. Pet ownership has grown worldwide during the pandemic. And now in Australia, some youngsters are trying beekeeping. It's an effort to help protect the threatened native species, which has no sting in its tail. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
Up close and personal with some of Australia's most important pollinators, and not a stinger in sight. For some, Australian native stingless bees are becoming the pet of choice. Severio Russo is the founder of the Billion Bees Foundation, a bee conservation organization.
Look, I was surprised how a lot of people actually didn't know that actually they exist. And as soon as they hear the word stingless, they gravitate towards this and they want to find out a little bit more. And then when they see how gentle they are and tiny, they all want it because it's the best pet.
From the more than 2,500 types of native bees found in Australia, these are the only species in Sydney that live in a colony and make honey. They are one of just 12 species that are stingless. Amateur bee rescuers are stepping in to raise awareness about the bee, hoping education will help boost the bee's popularity. Russo hopes kids' curiosity will be an asset in the fight to save these bees and other insects.
Kids have a natural inquisitive to actually learn about biology and insects. And when you've got them at your doorstep, you can actually observe them. And then all of a sudden, I've seen with my kids how they're starting to observe not just the bees itself, the stingless ones, but also other type of insects.
It did not take long for Russo's love for the bees to spread to his neighbors, with more than 20 homes on his street in Blakehurst, South Sydney, wanting a hive of their own. Now more than 100 hives have been installed in backyards, parks, and childcare centers in and around Blakehurst.
I was very fortunate at first because as soon as I started asking on the street here, pretty much every single person here has one of our hives.
The Billion Bees Foundation expects many more will continue to come on board and join the effort to save this threatened species. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Australia will spend a record $35 million over the next 4 years to protect its koala population. The animals are listed as a species at risk of extinction. Since 2018, about 30% of Australia's koalas have been lost due to bushfire, drought, and land clearing for development. The country's koala population has also declined because of a recent spread of sexually transmitted diseases. They cause infertility and even death. According to the Australian Koala Foundation, there are about 58,000 left in the wild. The Australian government has dedicated a total of $52 million in koalas since 2019. And for over 800 years, the ancient Chinese believed immortals dwelt in the mountains. Now these mystical places draw many who aspire to find peace through meditation. An exhibition in Paris called Painting Apart from the World celebrates the artists who've painted these famous mountains. NTD's France correspondent David Vives took a look.
It is believed in Chinese tradition that on the top of the Huang Mountain, the father of the Chinese civilization, the Yellow Emperor, discovered the immortality pills 5,000 years ago. These century-old scrolls are testimonies of Chinese history and its legends. This exhibition in Shen Yun Museum is entitled Apart from the World Paintings. It features more than 100 masterpieces from painters and poets from the Ming and the Qing dynasty.
These mountains were named after the Yellow Emperor. This was believed to be the divinity that founded the Chinese civilization. They were astounded by the beauty of nature. The painters gave a name to each mountain, each rock, each river.
The most common theme in the paintings was the aspiration for a secluded life, far away from the city, with a dwelling at the foot of a mountain or at the edge of a lake or forest.
Sometimes we barely see any human presence in the landscape. Maybe a small hut or a bridge. Here beside me you see a young boy studying his book. He has only a modest place in the painting, but maybe the boy's thought echoes with the beauty of this garden and the landscape behind.
The painting and calligraphy are from the Ming Dynasty and the Qing Dynasty, a period spanning from 1300 to 1911. The transition between the two dynasties, and especially the invasion of Manchu people, upset the Chinese nobility. Many people from the elite returned in the mountains and forests seeking refuge, and painters told their stories.
Here's the tale of Wang Zantian in the middle of the 17th century. During the dynasty transition, he was, like many others, upset with the political situation. He lived in the east of China, at Suzhou, while his father lived in the west. He had no news from his parents and decided to walk 4,000 miles to join his parents, which he succeeded to do.
Lefebvre says the paintings reflect the integrity and loyalty of the noble, who aspired to find their roots. Some Chinese found the mountains play host to meditation and spiritual practices, and that achieving the Tao through meditation allowed men access to divine powers, including immortality. This was mentioned in the poem that accompanies the paintings. Here's one on the Huang Mountains.
Even if the doors of heavens are obstructed by the clouds, the palaces of immortals are all on the edge of the celestial way. Myriads of aligned peaks earnestly prostrate themselves before the throne that rises at the center.
The collection is called Chelolo, or Pavilion of Perfect Bliss. This stands for the joy that is born from contemplation and from doing good deeds for others. It's open to the public in Paris until the 6th of March, when it will return to the Hong Kong Museum of Arts. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
And NASA revealed an image taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. They say it shows a galactic pair near a third galaxy, and any Star Trek fan will probably recognize the shape they make. The two galaxies in the upper right appear to be interacting with one another, and together they resemble the famous Starship on Star Trek, the USS Enterprise. It was just one of two epic photographs taken by the Hubble. NASA also released this photo of an area of space where stars are formed. They call it the Chameleon Cloud Complex. And they say the bright blue glow is created by young stars reflecting off the surrounding nebulae. And under a huge full moon made of cardboard, guests and cast of the movie Moonfall gathered on the red carpet for the Action Adventures world premiere. The film is directed and co-written by Independence Day and The Day After Tomorrow filmmaker Roland Emmerich. The movie stars Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, Donald Sutherland and Michael Pena among its large cast. In the movie, the moon gets bumped off its orbit, setting it on collision course with the Earth. Barry plays NASA executive Joe Fowler, who believes she can save human life. But first, she must convince an astronaut and a conspiracy theorist that her plan can work. Together, the trio set off on a moon mission to save planet Earth. Moonfall will be released globally beginning February 3rd. And on this segment, we'll look at the increased prevalence of diabetes amid the pandemic and 5 ways to quit the sit. Here's Gina Marie with Strong Mind and Body.
New figures show that global diabetes prevalence has increased by 16% in the past 2 years alone. 537 million adults are estimated to be living with the chronic condition. COVID-19 has stopped us from doing some of the things that help to prevent diabetes. One of the ways it has done so is by causing an increase in sedentary behavior. Sitting down for long periods was already at dangerous levels pre-COVID-19. Some estimates indicate that the pandemic added an average of 3 hours to our sitting time daily. It's vital that we get moving again to change this picture. Our research highlights regular movement as a key way to help manage diabetes and to prevent complications. Getting moving effectively improves glucose control, blood pressure, vascular health, and memory. As we transition to COVID-19 normal, we must leave lockdown levels of physical inactivity behind. Standing is a great option, or even better, light physical activity improves metabolism for people with type 2 diabetes. Breaking up sitting every hour with just 2 or 3 minutes of walking can make a difference to glucose control. That's compared with prolonged and uninterrupted sitting. Evidence shows that greater time spent doing light activities can provide greater blood sugar control over 24 hours than structured workouts. On a daily basis, try to include household chores, playing with pets, and light garden work. Let's look at 5 ways to quit the sit. Whether we have type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, or just want to get back to a healthier lifestyle, most of us can benefit from some simple changes. Try using a height-adjustable sit-to-stand desk. Start standing for a few minutes each day and gradually scale up to standing for 30 minutes of every hour. Use phone meetings or phone calls as a prompt to stand. Try walking during work meetings or when catching up with friends. After finishing a work task or an episode of your favorite TV show, take a short walk around the block. Set a calendar reminder or use a wearable device to prompt you to stand up and move regularly. It's been a tough couple of years, especially for people living with chronic health conditions. But it's not too late to make changes to prevent and manage diabetes and its complications.
And that's it for NTD News Today. You can still catch us at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selected videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.